Let's just go back up. Marianne, you have the minutes for February 3rd, rather?
I do. I've reviewed the minutes from Tuesday, February 3rd, 2015, and I move to accept the minutes as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. FY16 budget mailer. Dr. Martin.
We're going to go over donation approvals.
Oh, all right. Let's do donation approvals.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. We have some donation approvals from this month I'd like to share with you. $10,694.07 from CSA to be used for iPads and related equipment for the Dale Street School. $64.60 from the Target Corporation to be deposited in the Blake gift account. $147.48 from the Target Corporation to be deposited into the Dale Street gift account. And lastly, $57.97 from the Target Corporation to be deposited into the Wheelock gift account. I would ask that you accept these on behalf of the district.
So moved.
Any questions on any? Just on the Dale Street iPads, was that a grant request from one of the teachers, or?
It was from the teachers and the principal, yes.
Okay. So will that be is that an iPad cart?
Cart,
Or is it,
yes.
It's a cart.
It's a
okay.
cart.
So it's one
Okay.
classroom work?
It is.
Okay.
Shared. Yeah.
It is. So we had one classroom cart last year
Right.
that was donated, and now we're going to get. They were sharing, using different times, et cetera. And this will give us two sets over there.
What is the government connection quote? There's two
Sorry,
quotes. There's Apple Store and then there's Gov Connection. Is that
So we get. what do we get for a discount on that?
So that's actually for the cases, the
Oh,
gun connections
okay.
for the protected cases.
Okay, yeah.
And today, that they district-wide, we've only had 2 iPads damaged.
Right.
in the
Knock on
cases,
wood.
so
Yeah, no kidding. We
You
get
could
significant discount through the government.
Yeah.
You could shoot them
Yeah.
with a bullet in most of them. That's right. Any other questions on these? Do we motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now the FY16 budget mailer, right?
We go back to the budget mailer, yes.
Yeah, we skipped that
We
one.
skipped that one, okay.
We're going
Checked
back
it
up.
off already. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, as you know, the school committee sends out a budget mailer each year, and we usually collaborate and work together on that. We're working on a draft now, which we will be able to present at the April 6th meeting, and we are targeting this to be mailed out the Friday before April vacation, which is the typical time frame, which gives enough time to get to the homes, the residents of Medfield, in time for town meeting on the 27th. We had significant conversation about this last year based on, the format of the budget mailer, if you remember. So we have changed a little bit of the format in some of the items, but I certainly have worked in a subcommittee with Chris before to kind of do that. So if that works for the rest of the committee, I'll continue to work with Chris as a subcommittee on that, and then we'll have it all to the rest of the committee on the 6th, if that works for everyone. Okay.
If Chris is on the subcommittee, it'll be wordsmith to death.
That's what I
What he
found out
means is
last
it'll
year.
be perfect.
It'll work well. It'll read very well though. So I'll continue to work with Chris on that. So thank you. Unless there's any other questions.
Capital budget.
Old business capital budget, Michael. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Capital budget for fiscal year 16. I just want to take a little pause. I want to tell you the difference between a capital budget and an operational budget. The operational budget is, I look at it as a short-term budget, which is approved annually by the school committee, and that's based on a projection of estimate of revenue that comes into the town. Where the capital budget is a long-term items which have a life expectancy of greater than 5 years, funded by borrowing. So the capital budget is funded by borrowing, where the operational budget is funded through revenue that is projected through the town. So this year, the capital committee met. We are actually in a second year of a 5-year capital plan that was submitted last year. And this year, for the second year of the capital plan, if we start with the Wheelock, there was the front entranceway, the renovation of that parking lot for $97,000. replacement of a freezer at Wheelock, which is an original freezer at the Wheelock School, removal of tiles in classrooms. That was at the Wheelock School. At the Blake School, auditorium, there's some renovations that need to be done at the auditorium, and these renovations happen to be in the ceiling. There's waterproofing in the exterior of the building. At the high school, we put in for a replacement of band uniforms. The district level request was a security systems upgrade district-wide and a field study. This is a initiative with all youth programs. I believe it was youth soccer, youth lacrosse, football, baseball, and softball, and parks and recreation.
Correct.
So the capital committee met, went through all the requests town-wide, and what they are proposing for the fiscal year 16 for the school department is they would like to fund the replacement of the freezer at the Wheelock for $22,500. They would like to also, the second request, comes from the Blake's Middle School, which is the auditorium ceiling replacement for $14,000. They will also like to put forward the waterproofing and masonry work for $25,500. At the high school, they would like to place forward $22,500 for replacement of band uniforms, which is half the cost. And at the district level, they want to do a 3-year phased-in program for security systems with the $40,000 coming in year 1. And then they also want to fund $50,000 for a field study for the fields within Medfield. So if you have any questions.
Yeah, so I haven't even served 1 full year, but I recall hearing that we've requested in the past the Wheelock front lot restoration. How many years have we requested this, and can this go on?
So what there is a plan.
What's the long-term
correct.
plan?
There is a long-term plan that the capital committee discussed, and in my past district, and I believe also in the superintendent, we work with the DPW department, and we try to match certain projects to happen at the same time. So if there's going to be any type of road work happening in that area, if we put it with that project, it saves the town money because cost goes down.
Yeah.
So we're looking at working with DPW to see what the road construction looks like, and then match it up with that area of the community in that area, Wheelock,
Right.
and put it on for that specific time period.
And Amanda, the other piece on that too is that if we move forward in the next few years with a new Dale Street School,
Right.
one of the locations that the town-wide committee has identified is behind Wheelock, so that that could all be tied into that project if we
Right.
needed to.
Because the parking lot would be an access way,
Right,
right?
it'd be an
Correct.
access
Zero.
way into a new school.
Yeah.
But you're right, I mean, this is at least the 3rd, maybe 4th year it's been on the capital building.
Now, how about the tiles? I mean, is that a hazard? Should that be dealt with, or they can kind of patch it up?
So my understanding is that the second floor Wheelock has been completed, and they're working on phase 2, which is the first floor. So again, if it was a hazard, we would be doing it
Yeah.
quicker.
Okay. Thank you.
So, Michael, the security system upgrade, is that going to include some security cameras? Or what is included in that security system upgrade?
So we did receive a grant from the DA's office. I believe it was $2,500. So we're going to use that grant with this $40,000. And the goal is, to look at the middle school, high school campus, to evaluate the exteriors of that building, and to put in some security cameras along the campus of both the middle school and high school. Those cameras will be tied into not just the headroom here at the middle school, but with the police department. So it's a whole new system that we're trying to implement by hopefully this summer. Phase 2 would be to start looking at the elementaries, and we want to try to get the elementaries done in year 2 and 3. It's a $100,000 security upgrade.
Like when you talked about the auditorium replacement at Blake, you said ceiling. Are the seats being replaced too?
So we evaluated the auditorium the other day. Originally, it was the seating, but there is some ceiling tiles that have a priority over the seating, so we want to get that done first.
Okay.
So we want to get that ceiling done. We feel it's a priority over the seating, and then get the seats done
Right, so we
on the next
submitted the
request.
plan with Blake's seats, but once we went over there, got some feedback actually from a parent that was there
Mm-hmm.
and a performance, and we went over and took a look at it, and we felt that it probably needed priority over the seats at this time.
The seats are horrible too.
They
They
are
are,
terrible.
they
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. That
Okay.
needs a lot of work.
And then I should know this, but this seems like a lot more money than we've usually had in our approved from our capital budget. Does this still go to the warrant committee, or does this go to town meeting?
So the capital makes a recommendation, and it goes to the warrant committee, and then it goes to town floor.
Okay. But it's based on the amount of borrowing levy.
It is. It's this year. It's 400,000.
Okay.
Yeah, typically we
You're the
have,
expert in the room.
we have an overall budget for
Right.
capital, so if not anybody's getting, coming in with capital budget requests, then you guys get more. If there's a lot, then
Right.
we
Gotcha.
have to make it.
Oh, and this would be a year.
They usually come to us on or about a budget. They go over, then we have to sort of.
Gotcha. And this would be a year, given what's going on, that Public Works probably doesn't have a ton because they just got a new building, and police and fire are putting it all into the new
We
building.
haven't got a formal proposal yet, so I can't comment.
I'm guessing that would be logical to me. Okay.
I think the total request was 1.6 million townwide,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're gonna fund
400,000.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, that's good news. Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay.
Michael. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
FY16 operating, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. So last week, Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Bonfati and I went to the warrant committee meeting. So we've had, as you know, we've had subcommittee meetings the last few months regarding our FY16 budget. So we did our presentation to the full warrant committee last week, and got some really good feedback. I think initially from the way that we've changed the structure of the budget. They found it to be clear and understandable, so that was good feedback from the warrant committee. We got the same from the subcommittee as well. So basically, our 5.4% increase, according to the warrant committee, will really eat up the entire tax levy of 2.5. So one of the things that they had mentioned to us, it would be good if we could look at our budget again and possibly make some reductions. And I think, given the fact that we are the biggest player in the town budget. But we also need to be cognizant of the fact that we're also a piece of the entire town in terms of, the financials and how the town operates. We can't take all the money. So it made sense for us, I think as a subcommittee when we talked after the meeting, and my recommendation this evening would be if you would direct me to make some reductions in the budget. And then I come back on the 6th with some recommendations that you can either approve or not approve. But, we're looking from what the feedback we got from the warrant subcommittee, and the warrant committee last week didn't give us a hard number what they were expecting, but I think the initial feedback at the subcommittee meetings led us to believe that they were going to fund certain areas of our budget and then not fund other areas, which looked to be about a 4.4% increase, and we're coming in at 5.4. So I guess I'd recommend that we would reduce by 1% or 292,000. That would be, and it's not going to be easy because if you remember, the bulk or a good portion of that increase is due to some of the corrections that we're making in the budget. So that's my take on that, and I think I'd be interested in your feedback on that.
Now, I know, Pete Peterson sent out an email, you sent out an email to school committee about the governor's local aid,
Right.
the payback or give back, what have you. Will that in any way affect our FY16 budget?
So when we did our budget, we projected the Chapter 70 money to be level funded, because at that time, we had no idea what the governor was gonna come out, because his budget's later because he's a new governor. So new governors get 1 month extra to work on their budget. Last year in FY15, we received $25 extra per kid. So we were held harmless on the aid, and then $25 per kid, which ended up being $65,000. This year in Governor Baker's proposal, it's $20 per student. So it comes out to be in the mid-40s increase. So we get additional Chapter 78, but not like other places. It's only going to be about 40,000 or so.
Right.
So that, that plays into it, but, all that money goes to the town first, and then they divvy it up to us, even though it's earmarked for education.
It also, the governor's budget isn't always the final budget. So we
Right.
can't, we
Bank on
make a
that.
best,
Yeah,
best
okay.
conservative effort.
I mean, I will speak, I don't know if Mary Ann wants to as well, but the warrant committee, I think, laid out a pretty convincing rationale for why they're
Mhm.
dealing with these budgets. And obviously, even at 4.4, it's a significant increase from what we had, and we've never successfully gotten that kind of an increase without an override, in my memory anyway. So I think that they've been able to put together a plan that can do that without an override as a tribute to the work they've done. Clearly, we've got a tradition in the town of kind of working together
Right.
with these things. There's a lot of good relationships between people. I think that it benefits the school department in the long run, and we've always viewed the school department as part of a bigger whole, not just its own island, and not just using, I think, maybe what would be perceived as political muscle to get what we think is right if it isn't in the best interest of the town. So I think that, I would make a motion in favor of giving the superintendent and the director of business and finance the authority to find or to present to the warrant committee a budget budget increase that's 4.4%. I feel confident, based on some of the conversations we had in the subcommittee, that we can get there without creating a significant problem to what we as a school committee feel is important for the budget. So I have no problem making that motion. I don't know if, Mary Ann, if you have any comments on the whole process.
I definitely agree with Tim. I think that it was a great experience to go in and sit down with the warrant committee and talk to them. It was very collegial. It was a nice exchange. I thought that they were very reasonable.
Even Greg.
Even Greg. It was very good. It was collegial, and they seemed like they're willing to work with us. But I think, in all fairness, we also have to be reasonable in our requests. And I agree with Tim. I think if you were to go back and look at some of our requests, I think that is probably a more reasonable budget to present to the warrant committee. So I agree.
I appreciate you guys cover. I have been to the warrant committee every year. I've been on the school committee. It's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. So I'm glad it was a positive experience for you. And I think, as Dr. Marsden alluded to, a 4.4% increase in this climate is significant, and it prevents an override. It'd be pretty late in the season to try to even have that conversation. So I think it's premature necessarily to vote on it because we need to see the actual cuts, but we certainly support the concept. I think was what we're hearing from the committee, and be pleased to review the actual reductions on April 6th.
So what I can do then is to notify the chair of the warrant committee that we'll make those reductions of 1%, the 292, and then I'll present to you folks on the April 6th meeting what that looks like. And, I met with the principals last Friday. We sat down for a couple hours and went through a lot of this. And, what are some areas that you can reduce? And the hope is, number one, is not to impact kids and not to impact what they need. But also, again, one of our goals in this whole budget process was to maintain and enhance our staff. So that's going to be what we're going to try to do as much as we can, but we also can't back away from some of the other goals that we need to get going with some of the non-personnel issues. We also need to correct some of those issues with the structural deficits that if we don't do that this year, we're going to be in the same position we're in next year, the same we're in now next year. So we got to make those corrections now, and but I'll certainly make those recommendations to you, and you tell me what your pleasure is on the budget cuts.
Okay.
Thank you.
Superintendent's report, Dr. Marsden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, I'm going to go through a couple of things. One, I'm going to use the overhead on the document camera on the elementary school day committee. Just give an update and show you a little bit of what we've accomplished so far and what I guess what we're looking at doing for a staff survey. Then I'll get into just a quick overview of the Dale Street pilot study and what the structure of that's going to look like. The Golden Foundation Excellence Education, we're really excited about one of our teachers getting that again this year. And then give you an update on the search. So we've had 4 meetings, and our last meeting, Tim and Anna Mae were there as we went to develop a survey. One of the things that we came to is that it was important for us to develop a survey for teachers to get a sense of what their understanding is in terms of the elementary school day, what the concept of extending that day might look like, but also get an idea of how they're using their day right now. And we thought that was really important because anecdotally we've heard lots of feedback that, we don't have enough time to do this, we don't have enough time to do that, but let's try to have a survey and get a sense of what teachers are really thinking and get some real quantitative data on that. So that's what is behind the survey. So one of the things that we felt was important was first identify who the teacher is and what they do. So because everyone plays a different role in the elementary schools, it might make sense to get a sense of what the person works with. It could be a specialist classroom teacher or a special educator. So that made a lot of sense to us to do that. And then get a sense of how many years they've been teaching. But then we wanted to dig a little deeper and really take a look at how folks are spending their day. Because again, this is about not having enough time to fit it all in. That's what we've been hearing. So let's get a sense of what that breaks down. And we get as much data as we can, then we can certainly address whatever issue that came up. So we tried to identify how many minutes per week on average you spend teaching, and we listed the following subjects. So we looked at ELA, math, science, social studies, social competency and character ed, and then intervention, which is the response to intervention, RTI. So those are real key areas that we want to make sure that teachers are working on and our kids are working on. We want to get a sense of where teachers are on that. A lot of good conversation at ELA because some folks will look at that writing is separate and reading. We try to bundle those together and get a good sense. We have recommendations of what that looks like. Elementary school, you should have about 90 minutes a day with ELA, 60 minutes a day with mathematics. So that's kind of the framework that we're working on behind the scenes, but it's going to be fascinating to see what folks actually are spending their time on. And give us a really good sense of where we need to improve. So then we looked at, to be a successful teacher, in what areas do you feel you need more time? Please prioritize your top 3. So a lot of good conversation around this as well. We felt that it was important for everyone kind of knows where they need more time, but let's have folks put it out there and then prioritize the top 3 they need in terms of that. So we listed ELA, math, science, social studies, social competency, and then the RTI piece. Again, that response to intervention is really something new in the last 5 to 10 years in education, where kids are grouped in certain areas to get additional support. But that has to be scheduled in, and that can really create some issues in a schedule, but we want to see what folks are using their time on. So we went to the next area, and one of the things that we talked about that impacted a teacher's day is the amount of time they spend on duties. So we want to take a look at how much time do you spend in an average week on bus duty. So we had a drop down there where people could write down exactly what it is. And that's going to differ. If you're a classroom teacher, you may not spend as much time on that as you would if you're a specialist. And if you're a traveling specialist, you might not spend any time on that. So we wanted to really get a sense of what that looked like. How much time do you spend on average per week on recess duty? Okay, now classroom teachers, probably again, not as much, but specialists and special educators, maybe a little bit more. How much time do you spend on average per week? Detention. That was one school wanted to put that in there. That's right. We had a lot of conversation about that too. So that was something that again, this is a draft that we were talking about, and that was a particular issue at one school that we're going to talk about on our meeting on Thursday. And then how much time do we spend an average week with student consults? So student consult is something that came up a lot in conversation. If you are a teacher with students with IEPs, you have IEP, individual ed plan, or special education, you have to have consults on those students every week. And we want to see what that looks like. Does that happen before school? Does that happen during lunchtime? Does that happen after school? Does it happen during preparation period? We wanted to get a sense of what that looks like because that is different in every classroom. Some teachers may have 1 or 2 students in IEPs. Some teachers may have 4 or 5. So we want to get a sense of what that looked like.
Sorry, Dr. Marsden.
Yeah.
So consults, would that also include students who go out just for, say, extra help for reading or extra help for
Yes,
math
right.
as well, not just
Right,
IEP,
right.
just, so that
So there,
pool
so
then
there
that
could be,
gets
a
bigger.
there could be a general ed consult that happens with a reading
Right.
specialist or a math
Okay,
specialist.
yeah.
So that, again, that's another, we're trying to capture what the teacher day looks like.
Yeah.
And that's a reality in a teacher's day. How much time on average do you spend with morning duty? How much time do you spend on average per week offering extra help to students? And we talked a lot about that too. So there's certainly a culture in Medfield of teachers helping kids, after school, before school. So what does that look like? So if we're going to extend the school day a certain amount of minutes, that could impact that time. So we want to get an idea of what that looked like as well. What do student consults, we kind of out of order here because it's only the draft that we're going to be working off on Thursday. What do student consults take place? Check all that apply, again, before school, during specials, during lunch recess, or after school. Because if you're going to take time away before or after school by extending the day, that's going to impact consult time. So something that you've heard me talk about, and certainly the teachers are in favor of, and something that's really important educationally and for student achievement with our students, is common planning time. How much CPT do you currently have? And then for the purposes of the survey, CPT is defined as, and that's something we're going to work at in our group on Thursday to have a common definition of what common planning time looks like. So 0 to 30 minutes, 30 to 60 minutes, 60 to 90, 90 plus minutes. And that looks different in all three buildings. So I know that, it's important and teachers want that, but it's got to be consistent as well. So that's the next piece of that, is once we establish this, is to make the common planning time a consistent part of the teacher's day. It doesn't work if it's not part of the teacher's day. If you have common planning time and you say we're going to meet at 4 o'clock on Friday, it just doesn't work. It needs to be part of the teacher's day. It needs to be encompassed into their workday. How do you currently use common planning time? So again, the definition that we were working from in that group was teachers collaborating, talking about student work, looking at student work, talking about data, talking about improvement, instruction, and learning, sharing papers. Well, geez, I did it this way. You did it that way. How did you get this result? Real work. It's not talking about who's planning the field trip. It's not talking about I'm doing that duty. No, that's housekeeping things that happen outside of common planning time. So we wanted to get a sense of where people were with common planning time and how they were using it. How often would you like to have common planning time? Which is a great question, I think, to get a sense of where people are, 1 time per week, 2 times per week, 3 times per week, etc. How much individual planning time within the school day do you have on average per week? So we made that distinction between common planning time and individual planning time. So individual would be teachers have their own time to work on their material, whereas common planning time is time they have to be together. So that's why we want to make that distinction in the survey. How much non-compensated time outside of the contract hours are spent on school-related work? Again, we want to capture the life of a teacher here and get a sense of what, when we said non-compensated, because we wanted to make sure that people understood that it meant outside of your contracted day. So the teacher's contracted day is 7 hours and 15 minutes. Student day in elementary school is 6 hours. We didn't want folks to think it was the before and after time. No, we're talking about the time outside of their 7-hour and 15-minute day.
Are you trying to get at correcting papers and that kind of thing in this
Everything.
question?
You name it. Emails to parents, all that kind of stuff. The job has changed. It's as we know, it's a 24-hour job, and teachers, you hear about parents all the time saying, well, I got an email from Mrs. So-and-so on Sunday night at 7. I mean, teachers are working all the time, so we want to capture what that time is outside of
Yeah,
their
my
contract.
daughter emails them on Sunday just to test them. So. My daughter emails them on Sunday to test them. So.
Just to test them out and see if it works. And then the last one, what would the impact be on you as a teacher if 30 additional instructional minutes were added to the student day? So we're trying to see then, if we did 30 minutes additional, so if the student day became 6.5 hours instead of the 6 hours it is now, how does that change your life as a teacher? If it's 15 minutes on the front end and 15 on the end of the day, that might be different than half hour on the end because you have daycare issues as a mom or a dad. So we wanted to capture that too. Like, what would it do how would that change your life as a teacher? And wanted to make sure we captured the real life implications, I guess, of doing something like extending the school day. So where we are right now is Thursday, we're going to work on this as a committee. We're also going to develop 5 questions that are going to be part of a district-wide survey that's going to be going out in probably mid-April. So those 5 questions are going to be centered around extending the school day in elementary school and any questions that we can develop that relate to the Dale Street music pilot. So to get a real sense district-wide of what people are thinking about those 2 issues. And we'll have those 5 questions, and the leadership team is probably going to develop another 5 questions about just things they want to know about district-wide in their own schools. And that will encompass the entire survey that will probably, like I said, go out in mid-April, and the survey will have between 22 and 32 questions on it. It'll be an online survey to parents. That's the one that we partnered with Panorama Education that are doing the survey for us. And they do a great job with disaggregating the data, getting us all the information we need, and working on high participation rate. So that's where that committee is right now. And then we're still looking at making recommendations in May. We're not sure what the recommendations are going to be for next year, but we're not sure what those recommendations are going to be. But we have a lot of work to do between now and the end of the school year. Chris?
The proposals under consideration are talking about expanding the number of the student day, but not affecting the contractual day, right?
That's correct.
Contractual day is still
That's
the
correct.
same. Okay.
That's correct.
And there was some confusion about
There
that,
was.
even with the teachers that were present on the
Right.
committee,
Right.
whether that was under contractual time versus added time to their contract, which within one group, teachers interpreted
Right.
it differently. So the committee was really adamant in asking the principals to, before the teachers take this survey, to explain it, to go over it, to make sure everybody's using the same vocab, lingo, etc.
Right,
Because
right.
that was critical in getting accurate data, everybody coming from the
'Cause
same.
the contract day is 7.5 hours, right?
7 hours, 15 minutes.
7:15.
So one of the things that we talked about within this committee, and it was fairly early on, is that there is a gap between the student day and the teacher day. And those of us who have worked in other districts, that isn't normally the case. You normally have about a 15, 20-minute gap between those 2 days. And we have a pretty good gap. 45 minutes is a pretty good gap at elementary. And it's a little bit less at the high school because their day is 27 minutes longer. But so if you've only been in Medfield and you've only taught here, that's all you know. And having those 45 minutes outside of the student day is what you've always had and what you're used to, but it's not the norm. It's mostly, they're usually fairly tight, not that big of a span.
It's not.
And our teachers are using that time wisely, this where all the faculty meetings, all those things are happening, but it's a little bit out of the norm.
Aren't the elementary school days usually, in most districts, the actual student day is longer at the elementary school than the high school, isn't it?
No, it's
No,
always
I
longer
just
than high
made
school.
that up, okay.
So elementary needs 900
Well,
hours per
when I
year.
was taught elementary, I was assumed we were working harder.
That's what they told me in school. So elementary needs 900 hours per year, high school needs 990.
Okay.
So they're always just a little bit longer. I mean, there was a time, and I learned this last year, that there was a time not very long ago where we weren't making the 900. I know Wheelock made some
right,
changes 2
yes.
years ago on their schedule because they weren't making the 900 and hadn't made it for a bit, so we need to keep an eye on that stuff. So questions on that particular piece? Tim has volunteered to make all the surveys going forward and
It's really his
on that
strong
committee.
suit. Yeah.
But, a lot of good conversation, I think, comes out of that, and we got a really good group of parents, group of teachers and administrators, so it's been very helpful, very, very helpful. But I think, like anything, that takes a little bit of time, no doubt about it.
In essence, we want the teachers to have the tools so they can do their very best.
Right.
Because ultimately, our children benefit and they're happy, so we want to create that environment.
And I think that's what we started in the beginning, is how can we develop a schedule that teachers feel good about teaching and kids do their learning, but we also fit in everything else that we need to fit in. We've said that, I think the thing that really changed what we're doing here is foreign language. That really made it difficult for teachers because in foreign language is so important for our kids and we have to have that, but we need to structurally account for that. I think that's what we're trying to do is make sure that we get that time in there. And if those teachers were here, they tell me, Jeff, it's world language, not
Yes.
foreign language. But, anything else? Okay, thanks. So, Mr. Chair, going on the agenda, the Dale Street pilot study. As you know, we've been working on this for a bit, and I want to just share with you the framework of the research study that we're doing on the Dale Street pilot. And I want to just share with you the proposal. We'll be working with Dr. George Ladd, who is a former professor at Boston College and in the education department there at the Lynch School. I've had the opportunity to work with George a few times. I know Michael has as well in Dedham. Many districts use George's expertise when they're doing some program evaluation. So George is agreed to do this for us, and I want to just kind of run through a little bit about what this looks like. And he has a couple of folks on there as well. He has an assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction that's going to be working on this project, a retired elementary school principal, and a band director. So we're trying to get, he understands that it's important to have, all stakeholders involved in that. So the scheduling piece from the principal, obviously the band piece from the band director, and then the assistant superintendent with the standards-based education instruction piece. So getting it from all angles and making sure that you can kind of triangulate that data to make it a real study. So George sent me this project overview, and we need to make some tweaks to it, but I wanted to share what it looks like. The Medfield Public Schools enjoy a long-standing tradition of excellence in music instruction and performance opportunities for its students throughout their elementary, middle school, and high school years. This is the result of focus on quality, expert teaching, and family community support in providing a program that is engaging and enriching for students and all stakeholders. The Medfield Public Schools also has a deep concern for its core mission in providing the best education for every child. During the current school year, the Dale Street Elementary School has been piloting an approach to music ensemble rehearsals in grades 4 and 5, by which these student gatherings have been conducted outside the school day rather than as pullouts during the school day. The impact on the quality of education balanced against the needs for students to gather in a collaborative, structured practice environment needs to be considered. The New England educational consultants have been asked to conduct a thorough review of this pilot in light of the perceived benefits or potential liabilities for our students. So the key question that they'll be looking at is, based upon the review of the pilot and other data gathering activities, what should be the model for ensemble practice or rehearsal in grades 4 and 5? They will be conducting orientation meetings, meet with the superintendent to clarify key questions, review the project scope and activities, schedule meetings and interviews, and define deliverables. Meet briefly with the administrative team and members of the school day committee to orient them on the project scope and define deliverables, and also answer any questions that group may have. So another component will be the research on best practice. Review educational resources to help clarify history and research results in topics such as standards-based reform, time on task, and music education. They will conduct interviews with the building principal of Dale Street, the music director, and all music staff. Conduct phone interviews with the elementary instrumental music directors from 8 to 10 like school districts in regard to ensemble practice and rehearsal models. So I asked Doug, what would be the best 8 to 10. So Doug gave me a list, and this will be the list that we'll be using. Lexington, Wellesley, Foxborough, King Philip, Newton, Hopkinton, Needham, Weston, Norwood, Concord, Carlisle, Westboro, Northborough, Belmont, Ipswich. So that was Doug's choice for that. And he certainly knows a lot more than I do as far as who has the best programs out there. So that'll take place. We'll conduct focus groups and surveys, conduct a focus group with 4 to 6 teacher representatives from grades 4 and 5. Also conduct focus group with instrumental music team. Facilitate a discussion group with 6 to 10 selected music parents from MMA and grades 4 and 5. Meet with the elementary school principals on creative strategies for building scheduling. So that focus group will be focus group / surveys. So he'll be developing those and getting a sense and collecting all that information. There's a couple other issues that he's considering. One is the impact of the scheduling change that took place in 2012 and 2013. So the year before I got here, the 2012, 2013 school year, the amount of lessons was cut at Dale Street from 20 classes to 10 classes. So we want to try to get a sense. We might not be able to quantify that, but we can at least get some qualitative data from the teachers, because that, as Doug told me, that doubled the classes. So I think if you have, 5 kids in clarinet and that becomes 10, it becomes a little more difficult, especially with the space issues at Dale. So I want to get a good sense of the impact of that, because that certainly, if we doubled the classes size of any classroom, folks would not be real happy with that. So that, again, that was in 2012, 2013. And then the attrition piece at the middle school, Doug's been doing a really good job with that, so I think he might be getting the information on that to share with George. But Doug and Nat have been kind of looking at that. So that's the overview of the research. They're going to start probably in the beginning of April, and they will have the complete project done, looking at best practice, looking at the educational literature, all that piece, by the middle of May. So we should have in our hand.
The whole report would be by the
Right.
end of May?
So they should have in our hand, by the middle of May. I told them the goal would be to be before Memorial Day weekend. That's our goal, to get all that information.
And will George come here to present, or will he be just giving us a written report?
He can. I don't know what his schedule's like, but he can do that, I'm sure, if we need to do that, or he'll give us a report for. But I think it's fairly comprehensive. It's a way to bring a third party in to take a look at this. It's not Doug and me doing all this. It's, certainly people that are experts. George with expert in doing this kind of work, and then having the band director, the assistant superintendent, and the former principal to kind of take a look at this from an outside set of eyes, and give us a fair report on that. So that's where we are, and I'll give you updates as we go along, but he asked me today for contact information, so I can, include you guys in the contact information, and then all the key people that are on our staff too. So he's going to start that ball rolling, and then I need to email superintendents of selected, whatever ones they select, 8 to 10 they select, to let them know that someone's going to be calling them to get some information, some feedback, so they don't think it's just some random call. But that's where we are with that.
So are you going to randomly choose, parents of music kids, essentially? How are you
Well,
going to?
I think I'll probably
Yeah.
send something out to MMA and ask them for
Okay.
recommendations.
Yeah.
That makes the most sense. They
Yeah.
would know who.
Okay, yeah,
So I'll do that and ask them for 8 to 10 people, whatever.
great.
Dale Street parents or music parents overall?
Well, I think a little bit of both. I think you get the Dale Street parents, but also the overall parent. I think those parents that are not Dale Street parents have the perspective of, been through the program and
Right,
can give some different feedback to them. So
Right.
it makes sense to have them involved in that.
yeah,
I think it's a good move. Now
I
you say
agree.
it's a fresh pair of eyes at it, and
Yeah.
a good idea.
and they're definitely questioning the teachers who are
Right.
dealing,
Right. Again,
pros and
anecdotally, we
cons.
have positive feedback,
Yeah.
but now we're going to have some data on whether or not that's the case or not.
Yeah, great.
The other change that happened at Dale Street, I think since my kids left, was that fourth graders can choose more than one instrument now.
Mhm.
And I've always suspected, adding that extra choice, giving that extra choice to kids may have increased initial participation, but also may have created new burdens on the system. So I don't know if it's late in the game to add that kind of measure or that consideration, but I felt like, when we added that, the idea was to offer more opportunities, but I think we also created more burdens when we did that.
The nice thing about, you have to balance the 2012, 2013 cut, right? You have to balance that out. So you cut 10 classes and 10 experiences there to double up the classes, but you also added the fourth grade ensemble.
Right.
I contend you probably could have done that without making the other cuts.
Right.
I wasn't here, but that, you probably could have added the
Well,
fourth
was it-
grade ensemble and then maybe not have reduced the number of lessons in half.
I think it was coincident with also expanding world language. That was
I'm sure, yeah.
part of what
Yeah.
happened. at the
Yeah,
same
there's
time.
a lot that ties back to world language.
Yeah,
A lot, so. Okay.
great.
So some great news, the Goldman Foundation for Excellence Education released their winners, and Doug Olson, we aforementioned, is the winner this year. So really, I think those of you that have been here longer than me know that Doug has really been the driving force and backbone of this music program, and did an incredible job for so many years, and certainly long overdue recognition for Doug. Last year we had Nat Vaughn and Melinda Lohan. So this started in 1991, and the first award winner from Medfield, because it's all the tech collaborative communities. The first one from Medfield was 2000 was Richard DeSorda. So he was the first one ever, and then we had some scattered in there, but the last few years have really been great. So just want to congratulate Doug. There's going to be a reception on April 13th, which was in your packet. And we actually were able to host this last year, if you remember.
Yeah.
Harriet came with her family, and we had a great reception in the cafeteria, and then the presentation in the auditorium, which was fabulous. So we're really proud of Doug, and look forward to that reception on the 13th. So just some great news.
Yeah.
Great. Congratulations, I know Doug's got a concert tonight.
He does, yeah. Every Monday night is standing gig, so he's not here tonight. And then our Dale Street principal search, we had our first meeting last week, in which we introduced the committee to each other and talked about expectations and orientation, et cetera. Was able to give the committee the resumes of potential candidates. So we had, I think it was 51 or 52 applications for the position, which is great. I mean, I've talked to other superintendents that aren't getting that kind of, I guess, deep pool. I mean, they're getting some resumes, but nothing like that. So I went through like I did last year with Memorial, and weeded out some of the ones that, certainly we're not going to waste folks' time if they're not going to be working here. We're not going to have the committee go through all those. So brought that down to 14. So we have 5 sitting principals and 9 sitting assistant principals in the mix. So we have a great committee of 6 parents, 4 teachers, 2 school committee, 3 administrators, and Chief Meany as the community rep. So it's a big group, but a really good group with a wide variety of experience and expertise in education and HR. So it was a perfect fit for everybody. So now that committee is going to, at our meeting this Wednesday, look at whittling that down from 14 to 6 to 8, which we'll be doing the interviews at that point. So last year we had the same instructions, and the committee decided to only interview 6 for the memorial. So we're looking between 6 and 8, and we'll get a sense of what those folks look like as far as candidates. And then on the 25th and 26th, we'll do interviews that night. And then that committee will send 2 to 3 to me, and we'll continue that process with site visits both at their school district and here, which is really neat to bring them to Medfield and watch them interact with teachers and kids and see if it's a good fit. We had some really good interactions last year with that, and so we'll do that same process this year. And the target right now is to do an appointment right before April vacation. So that's what our goal is right now. There's always things that happen with schedules and this and that, but that's our goal right now. And I'll certainly keep you updated on the 6th of where we are and how many finalists we have, et cetera. And the thing is, it doesn't go public until they're finalists. So one thing I mentioned to the committee is that if some of these people are applying in confidence, so they don't want their superintendent to know that they're applying for another position. So they make a decision if they become a finalist. They know it goes public at that point. So some folks decide, I'm out. I'm not even going to be a part of this. I'm going to stay where I am. But some have to make that decision where you need to tell your boss what's going on. And it's not like the private sector where you can apply wherever you want. When you're a finalist for a principal or a superintendent job, the whole world knows because it's in the paper. So it's a very different dynamic, and certainly we respect that. And I know that our committee in the past, last year, they respected that, and the committee this year will do that as well. So we're excited. I mean, great candidates, really good pool. Talked to a superintendent in South Shore in a very high-performing community, and he had 7 applications for his principal job. So really excited about that. And we'll keep you updated, and thank you to Mary Ann and Anna Mae for being on that committee. I appreciate that. It's a big help, so thank you. My last thing, Mr. Chair, district recognition. So I just have a few things. I'd like to just recognize our sports teams in the winter. Every single team made the state tournament and had some real exciting over the weekend. We had our girls basketball team make to the state finals again. They lost a tough one against Duxbury, but certainly really proud of our girls and our coaches. Just great to be there. Our girls hockey team made it to the semifinals, and they lost to Wellesley, who ended up losing yesterday at the Garden to, I forget who they lost to, but they lost. And boys basketball also lost to a tough Marlboro team that ended up being in the state championship this past weekend too. So it was great, great all around for our kids. Our boys hockey team also, they went out in the first round, and our gymnasts also did great. So just really happy with all of our winter sports, and congratulate our coaches and all our kids and our student athletes. I was able to attend Bandorama last week, and it was just really impressive to see the progression of kids. So you get to see the 4th and 5th grade band all the way up to our amazing high school band, and you see that progression in the same room. It was just really neat and really well attended. So congratulations to Doug and the rest of the band crew. And then over the weekend, Godspell, our theater students did a wonderful job with Godspell. 3 shows, and certainly was standing room only, so real happy with what they did there. And then lastly, just want to congratulate our CSA for the work they did at the Winter Carnival this weekend for elementary schools. Just did a really great job and always well attended. Just a lot of work goes into something like that. So just want to thank them for all their effort, because the money they raise on that day comes back and helps us. So just appreciate the work. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I neglected to ask about the Dale Street study. What's the cost for the study?
We don't know exactly what the cost
Hasn't
is.
been yet? Okay.
Yeah, it's probably going to be around 6,000.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty normal. I had one of the things I had George do. If you remember during the MCAS presentation, the fact that in my former district we calculated the teacher growth numbers before the state did.
Mhm.
So George did all that work for us. So I've used George for a couple of things. I know Michael in Dedham used him a lot, and it's he does a great job. And if he doesn't know how to do it, he has experts that come in and do the work for you.
Great. This is the time we set aside for public input.
If I could just.
Oh, sorry.
So one other thing. Typically a study like this, if you had an assistant superintendent or a director of curriculum, they would lead some of that work. But since we don't have a director of curriculum right now, because she's a principal,
Right.
and we don't have an assistant superintendent, I mean, that's why, just in case there's any
Right.
issue around the cost, that's why we have to
Right.
do that.
Outsource.
So. But anyway, thank you.
It's a lot less than hiring an assistant
Exactly.
superintendent.
Right.
Yeah, a lot less.
This is the time we set aside for public input. And a member of the community wants to say anything.
Dave Darmafal, parent of 2 high school students here in Medfield. Just have a couple of quick questions. What's your intention about how to use the study that Dr. Ladd is going to be doing? I imagine that's going to be input to the school day planning and other things that are going on. And then the other one was just, as I understand it, Boston Public Schools now have voted to extend their day. I think that's come through the teachers union
Yes, yeah.
at this point. Do you know, my impression from what I've read is that that's not going to extend that's going to also extend the teachers' day, but I don't know. I'm just wondering. My
It
sense
is.
is, though, that's going to put them at 6 hours and 40 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Anyways, just information about that and how that compares to what your thinking is about whether
Sure.
teachers get more time or not.
Sure, so the first one, you're right, that's what we're going to use it for, to influence and give a recommendation to the elementary school day committee, and then also in developing a schedule for next school year. I mean, that's an important piece of it, right? I mean, you need to get that information before you develop the schedule. The second part of that question, yeah, Boston has that tight number between the student day and the teacher day, so it's actually costing Boston a lot of money to do that. Just like it cost Needham last year a lot of money to do that, because their teacher day was closely connected to their student day, where we have a lot more flexibility in that day.
So in those, they have to actually, are going to pay the teachers longer hours,
Correct.
more hours now.
Correct.
Whereas that's not necessarily something we have to do because of the gap.
Correct. Yep. Thank you.
Chris McHugh Potts. I just wanted to ask a question about, I mean, we're looking at the elementary school day, and then we're looking at the music, doing this intensive sort of study of the music pilot. But I'm also wondering on the Mass Tell survey, is that some of the aspects of that information that has been captured in those teacher surveys for Dale Street isn't really being incorporated in how we're looking at the Dale Street school day. So specifically things like paperwork requirements and other duties are cutting into teacher time. And that was a huge number. I mean, that was, like 70%.
Excuse me, Chris, could you just explain the MassTel so everyone knows what?
It's a statewide survey of teachers in the public school systems. Here in Medfield, that we had our elementary school teachers took it. The middle school teachers and the high school teachers also took it, but the results weren't high enough. The percentage of participation wasn't high enough for them to publicly report. There was a very high percentage rate of the number of teachers that responded. I believe it was somewhere between 60
63 at Dale Street.
63%. Yeah. So it was a higher response rate, but there were things that came out of that survey that certainly pointed to the need for an extended school day. We talked about this at the committee meeting, but there were also aspects of the school day that impact the teacher's time that it doesn't seem to be, it's not being examined in any capacity. So things like the paperwork, adequate space, professional development resources. I mean, all these things eat up teacher time. So I'm just trying to figure out, you can reconfigure music, you can lengthen the school day, but I think there are other elements of teacher time that probably need to be examined, and I'm just wondering what the plan might be for doing that, so that you have more of a holistic picture of
We'd
the
like to
school
build
day.
a new Dale Street, so that's a space issue. We'd like to do that part. I mean, that would be something that'd be great. The paperwork piece, I mean, that's a snapshot where the new principal would have a conversation with teachers to get a sense of what they think needs to be reduced. If it's report cards, it can't be. But if it's looking at data and looking at student data, which is what I think it is, because I know the feedback that I got from teachers that took that survey, that's something that needs to be looked at, I guess. But I think, Chris, Thursday would be a great time for you to bring that up at that committee meeting, because that's just a draft up there. So we can incorporate anything that you want in there into that draft and see if that would work. Sure.
I have to just be honest that I think that the difficult thing with the committee is that when you have a superintendent, when you have principals, and then you have teachers in the room, I think sometimes, in all honesty, when I've been in these types of group discussions, I think sometimes it's just difficult for teachers to feel like they can be honest and open in a group like that when you have your principal sitting there and your superintendent sitting there. So I just wonder, as a person who knows a lot of our teachers and knows what they're, has just had discussions with them, I'm not sure that there's a high comfort level about being honest and open about some of the real things that they may be dealing with.
Well, that's a whole other issue, but that's why we're doing the survey, to get that open and honest feedback from them.
Okay, our next meeting, which is April 6th, we will again take up the FY16 budget and hopefully vote a final budget at that point. There's always a chance that at the meeting, we have a meeting immediately preceding town meeting. There's always a chance we could change the budget right up until town meeting floor. In fact, there have been circumstances where before I think anybody on this in this committee was serving, or maybe even living in town. There was a movement on town meeting floor to add to the school budget, and a real contentious fight between the warrant committee and the school committee and others. And so obviously we prefer to avoid that for working closely together. But the budget can change right up to the last minute. Things costs come up that aren't expected, so we'll keep an eye on that. We'll also get the update on the Dale Street search, and we'll hopefully finalize the budget mailer.
Right.
Members have anything? Are you doing a senior project?
No, I wish I could, but too much student council, so.
Fair enough.
There you go.
Fair enough. You should get credit for this. You should be blogging through this whole meeting. You could get a cell signal in here. Tim?
No.
So Riley, you're not going to share what you did at student council over the weekend, the awards
Oh,
for
the
student
award.
council?
Oh, right, they, sorry.
It's
I
so late
forgot.
she's falling asleep.
I'm sorry.
No, our student council got the gold award at MASC conference in Hyannis. Yeah, it was awesome. They're very proud.
What is it? Sorry.
The MASC conference. So a bunch of student councils in our league basically go together, and it's actually really fun. I went last year, but it's really spirited and everyone just has a great time. But they do a binder, and our council put together some great events and said what we did for the past year, and we got a gold award for it. So it was great.
Well done.
Congratulations.
Super, super. No, just to reiterate, hats off to the CSA for pulling off the Winter Carnival, months and months, and tons of parents, and it's just, there's a lot of work that goes into that, so hats off to them and everybody who came. It was not a great day outside, so it was a good day to have Winter Carnival on the inside. And congratulations to all the folks who participated in Destination Imagination. That's such a great thing for a lot of our kids, so I'm proud of them and what they did.
We had 96.
Wow.
96
Yeah,
kids.
it's awesome. Really great. That's it.
Marion?
The same thing about the Winter Carnival. I mean, the Sullivans are mainstays at that Winter Carnival every year. And this is the first year I actually had kids spread out and lose them, and they were all through that Winter Carnival. But again, such a great event, and I think people don't always realize all the work that goes behind the scenes for months and months, and the transition to kind of a new regime that runs that Winter Carnival. And like Jeff said, that money all comes back to the schools to do great things. So tons of hard work. That's not just that one day, so that's fantastic. I also wanted to mention a couple of things that the girls' basketball team, I think within an hour of them losing that state championship game, they tweeted out a congratulations to the winners. And those are the things that I bring to my kids and show them. It's not about what happens when you win all the time. It's how you conduct yourself when you lose. And it's just so impressive that these kids do these things sometimes. I mean, that feeling of when you lose is just awful. So for them to be tweeting out congratulations within very close to their loss is really impressive for those kids. So.
And I have to add, our student behavior at that game was awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You're gonna have to teach me how to use Twitter. I just can't figure it. I actually had a great time at Bandorama, although it reminded me, Bandorama or Bandorama? Anime would certainly say Bandorama, but it was a great event, and great to see. There was this amazing clarinet player in the 6th grade band. I don't know how she does it, but she's just terrific. She might be related to me. The middle school musical is coming up on the 10th and 11th.
Oh, yeah.
Peter Pan. Make sure to take it in. Tickets are going fast. And I too want to thank everybody who participated in Winter Carnival. I'm also, as great as that event is, I'm also thankful that my kids are past the age where I have to take them, because it was very stressful to me having them all over at school, not know where they are. And it always usually cost me more money than I ever expected. So.
Oh, and also Moxie Strings, the MMA, is bringing them in, and they're going to work with the kids from 4th grade to high school, which is great, and that's this Thursday.
Great. And I'm sure the jazz band concert tonight was terrific, too.
I'm sure it was.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This program was made possible through the generous support of your Medfield friends and neighbors, folks just like you. And thanks for watching.